I was asked to do a video example of a GIF, so what we talked about last week. So I'm just going to do a really quick one of those for you guys, and yeah, it's just for your reference, and you can ask me any questions if you have them at some point within the forum or within the session. So what we're going to do is we're going to do what I talked about in the last couple of sessions actually. So we're going to import some images as layers. So we make one file out of a series of images that we've already got in our folder, and import those as layers. Okay, so let me click onto Photoshop. I'm going to go to File, then I'm going to go to Scripts, Photoshop, and then I'm going to go to Load Files into Stack. Click on there. Now, as I come up here, I've got this new box. It says Load Layers, so it's asking me to choose 2 or more files to load into an image stack. So yeah, now I just need to browse and find my images. So I click Browse, I have a look at my folder. So I'm going to go straight to our folders. Here we go, 50 years, 50 images. I'm going to go to 1970. And you can see I've got my 10 images. So I'm going to select from 1 to 10, and I'm going to click Open. Okay, so you can see they've all the scripts have been in there. Now here I've got a copy of 2, so I'm just going to get rid of one of the Colin Jones images. But that 10, I'm going to change that when we get into Photoshop. Okay, so you might want to call that something else. So if you did have 10 slides, you might want to call it put a hashtag for the 10 or some other mark so it goes after the 9. I think that will help. Well, I'm actually not going to click automatically align source images just because it takes a long time and I don't need it to. I'm not going to click create smart objects either because, again, I don't need those 2 things. I'm not trying to align the images. I'm going to do that manually. Okay, so I'll leave those unclicked and I'm just going to click OK. So you see as I click OK, Photoshop is now just automatically putting those images into a sequence for me. So it's asking me if I want to convert colors. I'm just going to say yes, that's fine, because I want to work in RGB. It's the same, so that's absolutely fine. So I'm going to put don't show again, click OK. And let it do its thing. So as you can see, I've got now all of my images as layers. And, except for the 10, it's put them all in the right order, which is fantastic. So I'm just going to move layer 10 down, and all I do by doing that is just click and hold with my mouse. And I can just drag it down all the way down to after 9. So now I know that they're all in the order that I want them to be. Okay, great. So after I've done that, now I can think about positioning. So you notice that I was kind of moving things around before and changing sizes. So I'm going to do a little bit of that, a kind of simple version to show you guys how to get going. So first of all, I'm going to use number 1, and I'm going to use the position tool, and I'm going to use the transform tool. So the position tool is these 2 kind of cross-based arrows, so it's called the move tool. And the lovely thing about Photoshop is, again, if you just hover over the tools, it'll tell you what they're for. Okay, so we're going to use the move tool, and then as I start moving using the move tool, you can see this lovely blue box that comes on because I've got show transform controls ticked. So that means I can now change the scale automatically. Okay, so I'm just going to mess around with scale a little bit. I'm going to make this picture, this image, very, very big. So I want it to cover the whole of my document. So that's done. Okay, so that's number 1 done. So now that's the right size that I want it to be. So I'm just going to click on the eye on the layer so it's unseen, so I can work on the other images. Okay, so now I've got the next image, which is this one, which I think is great in size, so I don't need to do anything to it. So I'm just going to click off of that one. Then I've got this one, so I've got Greg Day. So you can see I need to just change the sizing. Now, if your page comes up this big and you get a little bit disorientated, you can just click on the Z key and it will go to zoom. for you. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to use the Alt key. So I'm going to hold down on Alt and click a couple of times, just so I can see the full size of my document, okay? So if you don't know the shortcut, you can just come over here, guys, and basically when you click well, you definitely don't click on the dodge tool. When you click over here on the magnifying glass, you can see the zoom tool. Okay, great. So coming back here, I'm going to click back to the move tool, and I'm going to resize this image by Greg Day to make sure it covers my whole page. I think that'll do for now. Lovely. And then I'm going to click off of that one. I'm going to go to the Jack Garofalo image. Lovely ladies. Click and resize this. Move it to where I want it to be. That's great. And then click on the eye. I want to see it. Then I'm going to move to a Jack Garofalo. Again, I'm just going to resize. Change it. Like that. Click off. Click on. Let's say I'm going to choose Gildan image. Resize it. Great. Click off. Click on. Choose Gildan image. Resize that one. Click off. Click on Bulma. Same process. And just open it a little bit there. Click off. Stephen Edison. Resize. Move over. Cool. Great. And last but not least, Stephen Edison, resize. Okay, so they're ready. Okay, and now I just want to create that GIF. So I just want the 10 images to kind of mold into one like a slideshow. So for this one, I'm not putting any text in or anything like that, but it's the same process. Okay, so the text layers would just go in between the images, and you can kind of do the same thing in terms of frame animation. Okay, so now I'm going to come down here, and you can see I've got this timeline and create frame animation. So I'm just going to click on here. Okay, so if you get to this point and nothing happens, so you see I'm clicking here and nothing happens, that's normally because all I need to do is come out of and press kind of enter. Okay. To get rid of this blue box because it still thinks I want to transform. So if you get this blue box, if you just come off of the move tool, so if you click enter or you click M, which will bring you onto a marquee tool, it deselects that layer. So now I can actually work in a different function kind of tool space. So over here, this is the frame time animation. I've got one window here, which is one frame. Okay. Now I want to make 10 different frames, but I'm going to tween in between them. Okay. So I'm going to make the kind of process smooth as I go from one to the other. Now, in order to do that, all I need to do is basically use this little tool down here, which is called tween. Okay. Now I can't use it now because I've only got one image. So I need two in order for the images to tween, for them to kind of dissolve from one to the other. Okay, so first, before that, I'm going to change my original structure to 1 second. So that's the amount of time I want the viewer to look at that image. Okay, now I'm going to add an image, and I'm just going to make that visible. Right, quickly, before I go on, before I start tweening, I'm just going to check the timing. Check I'm happy with the timing from 1 second to the next. I quite like that timing. I think that's fine. So now I want to kind of extend it a little bit so it kind of molds into one. So I'm going to tween, and I'm going to tween by 3 layers. So 3 frames, okay? So what that's done is that's extended that's just extended the dissolve between one and another. Now you can see that's quite jointy and kind of rigid, doesn't work that well, right? The reason why is because it's got 1 second in between. So if I want it to be smoother, I need more layers. So to give you an example, average film runs at 24 frames per second. I've got 1 frame per second, so that's why it's too clunky. Okay, so if I change this, I make those 3 frames and I put them as a 0.1 second delay. See, it comes a little bit smoother. Not really smooth, but a little bit smoother, okay? To make it really smooth, I'd have to have a lot more frames. So I'd probably go up to 24 and it would dissolve really cleanly, okay? All right, so that's an idea of how you can do it. I'm going to leave it quite clunky because, I don't know, I think there's something quite charming about that. And we're going to do a couple more, okay? And then we're going to save it as a GIF. So I've done my first part. Now I'm going to move to the next part. So I'm going to kind of dissolve this Stephen Edison image into the John Baldwin image. So let's give that a go. So I select the two and then I click tween. This time, let's try a few more frames. So we're not going to go for 3. Let's try 10. See what that's like, okay? So now I've got 10, but notice again, all those 10 are in 1 second. So they're 1 second per frame, which I don't want, okay? I want to calm that down a little bit. So I've got to look at where my original frame was, okay, which is at frame 5. Now I'm going to go up 1 from there. I'm just going to select frame 6, and I'm going to select up to frame 15, and I'm going to bring that down so it's actually got 0.1 of a second delay, okay. Then we can see the difference between the two. So this one's quite clunky. This one's a little smoother. So you can already see that change that we're getting, okay. Here we go. All right, so let's try another one, just one more, so you can see the difference in kind of dissolving. So I'm making a note of my last frame. It's 16, okay? You've got to remember your last frame. It's a really tricky thing with animation. So remember your last frame because you want to keep track of that kind of tweening process. So if I click add, then I'm going to kind of make this Bruce Gilden image viewable. Then I'm going to select 16 and 17, then I'm going to tween between the two of them. Now instead of 10, let's go for the whole 24, okay? So remember that our last full image was at 16. It's really important that you remember that because now I'm going to select from 17 to kind of change the timing of my tween, okay? So click enter, and I've got loads of frames now, okay? So I'm going to go back. Like I said, I'm going to click from 17, and I'm going to go up to 40, so holding the shift key, so I select all of them, and then I'm going to actually click no delay on here, so I get 24 frames per second, as you would in a film. Now let's see how all of those 3 look together. There you go, so a lot of dissolving there, it's a lot more time. So first one, pretty clunky, but quite nice. Second one, a bit smoother. Third one, smooth, pretty much. Okay, so we're going to stop there, and now I'm going to save that. So we're going to go up to File. We're going to go to Export, and we're going to go to Save for Web. Okay, there we go. So we've got our original. It tells us how long it is, how big it's going to be. So this is going to be pretty huge at the moment at 85 because the quality of all the images. So that tells me I need to bring that image size down a little bit. Now, the ratio here is linked and connected. So if I bring that down from 2,462 pixels to 1,000, which is more than enough, and then we're going to click Save. So it's changed the size, you can see, from 80 megabytes to 20, which is a big difference. So I'm just going to save this as test. This one. Have a look at it. In the 1970s. And click